Okay, welcome back to the Founders Table. This is where we sit down with leaders who are shaping industries and driving quite meaningful change. Today, I'm joined by Joy Delisle, CEO of Buckhorn Children and Family Services, an organization that's dedicated to providing healing, stability, and hope for children and families across multiple states. Joy brings over 20 years of experience in behavioral health, from clinical leadership to program development and overseeing multi-million dollar service lines, as well as guiding teams through significant growth. Throughout her career, Joy has been known as a builder of programs, teams, systems that actually work for the people they're designed to help. And today she leads a mission-driven organization delivering qualified residential treatment, foster care, and adoption services, addiction recovery, and family preservation programs. A mouthful for myself. So you do a lot, Joy, but I'm happy to have you on. The first question I'd like to start with is really going into like your background in leadership. So you've worked across so many different facets of behavioral health, residential treatment, clinical operations, community programs. What originally drew you into this field?
Yeah, no, great question. Growing up, I grew up in upstate New York, right on the Canadian border, so very cold. Yeah. At a young age, I kind of witnessed pretty significant change where there were some prominent factories there, and they employed a lot of people. Those factories closed. I think I was in like elementary school when those factories closed. And so a lot of families had an option. Either they had to uproot and move,
Okay.
or they had to try to find employment where they weren't going to make near as much. And so then their lifestyles changed. So you could see when there's such a significant financial impact, it affected people's mental health,
Right.
substance use, things
Sure.
like that. So even being at a young age, you could just see how it impacted my friends and their families and things like that. And I kind of knew then that I wanted to help. I want to help people to become the best versions of themselves possible and to feel as happy as they possibly can. So that mission inside me has kind of never changed.
I love that. And that's it's a very like I don't know, I feel like a lot of people have like there's a lot of great people and the good people in the world. They always have that within their heart, but not a lot of people go into a career with it. So I find that very interesting, fascinating, and impressive that you obviously chose to just continue and take that into your career path as well. Was there, I guess, a moment in your career when when you realized that you were ready to move from direct services into leading like full scale programs and organizations?
I think it's kind of a couple of things. I think the first thing is just in the line of being a counselor. Unfortunately, the burnout rate is pretty high.
Mm,
You're hearing horrific stories. You're trying to help people. There's so much trauma.
yeah,
So it gets to a point where you think, okay, I still want to be in this field, but I'm not sure that this is sustainable for me.
sure.
So I think that was part of it. I think, and the other part is just with all the different kind of areas that I've worked in under the mental health, behavioral health umbrella, I wanted to be able to pass on my knowledge. And so it came to a point where I thought, you know what, I can continue helping, just the clients that I'm seeing, or if I continue to grow into leadership positions, then I can help even more people indirectly because
Hmm.
then I'm providing that guidance and that mentoring to the clinicians that they're seeing.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. It's almost like you're in your eyes, you can reach a lot more people. It's like you're not no longer like solely on this one individual. You can reach way more people than you ever thought you could. I love that.
Absolutely.
I love that. So I mean, with over 2 decades in mental and behavioral health, which is a long time, um,
It is.
is there like a leadership lesson or a few? Because I know with that scale of like time and experience, there's probably a few things that you remember or that you like stick to. Is there a specific leadership lesson that has stayed true through every chapter?
Believe it or not, for me, it's been self-care.
Mm,
Self-care is so important. And I heard people say that when I was early in my career and being honest, being brand new in the field. Oh, yeah, right. It's fine. It's fine. But no, as I have continued, along this path, I've realized how important it is to take care of myself. That way I'm able to take care of others. That's really what it comes down to is if I'm not on top of my game, then I'm not helping people to be on top of theirs.
Right.
So I've had to find techniques that work for me and things that I have to do. And just kind of, I guess being a counselor, I'm aware of my body anyway. I'm aware of what's going on and, where I need to be.
Right.
So if I need to, get a couple more exercises in or spend a little more time in the hot tub or, I just kind of have to, navigate what it is that I need
Right.
for self-care. I think that's the biggest thing. I think the other really important lesson that I learned is being true to yourself and your values.
Hmm.
In this field, there are so many different arenas that you can kind of work in and so many different spaces under so many different leaders. And you have to find where you're comfortable. So, unfortunately, I mean, everyone is in this field to help, which is fantastic. Just I guess different agencies are driven differently.
Sure.
So if there's ever an agency you work for that maybe you think, this doesn't really align with my values, my recommendation is find an agency that does, because you're not going to be happy.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest thing. If we want to continue to help others, again, it goes back to self-care. We have to take care of ourselves. So you have to make sure that the company you're working for really aligns with who you are and what your values are,
Hmm.
because then you're going to be happier and then more productive.
I do really love that. And I feel like self-care is obviously very important. Is there anything I guess you could say to some, because some people, myself included, my younger self, I would always look at, I knew I needed self-care, right? But then there's part of me who was, when I was younger, that was always like, well, I can put this to the side because this is more important than my self-care. Even though when you logically think about it, like how you said,
Yeah,
if you're not taken care of, you can't take care of other people, whatever you have to do. So, I mean,
right.
is there, I don't know, is there anything, it's hard to say, like, is there anything you can say to that for some people who struggle with, they don't prioritize the self-care, even though they do a little bit, but they're always quick to push
Mhm.
it to the side?
Oh, I fully admit that was me in my younger years as well. It was, yeah, it's important. No, it's not. No, it's not. But it is. It really, it is. And I think just that body awareness of, if you find yourself becoming more irritable, your patience maybe isn't what it's supposed to be. You get that feeling of like, it's another day.
Hmm.
Those kinds of things. Like, to me, those are all signs that, like, you really kind of need to take a step back, do something, figure out what it is you need to do to take care of yourself at that time. We have to be refreshed. We have to be renewed. We have to be, we all have to
Right.
be feel good, right?
Right.
So I think just really paying attention to your body, making sure that you're staying true to yourself. If you find that you're not acting like yourself, there's a reason. So then I would really recommend making this a priority.
Interesting. I like that. So it's almost like looking at those when you start feeling those moments where you start to feel off or a little bit irritable, like look at those as like the warning flags, as like probably due for a
Yeah.
self-care or something, whether it's like getting yourself a treat or going to the gym or
Yeah,
something. Love that.
definitely.
So, about Buckhorn. So, for listeners who, may not know about Buckhorn Children and Family Services, can you give a quick overview of who you serve, and what your programs are focused on?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Buckhorn is located in Eastern Kentucky. So we are in the mountains in Eastern Kentucky. So right now we have 5 programs. So we offer family preservation services. So our preservation program is really about trying to help families stay together.
Sure.
So sometimes there's a crisis that happens. Sometimes there's just people that just don't know great parenting skills, and so it can lead to a crisis. So the family preservation program is really all about trying to keep families together, teaching skills, getting resources, things like that.
Okay.
Then from there, sometimes that's not always successful. And so there's a time where children have to enter foster care.
Mhm.
So we do have our foster care program, and really just try to help children, and of course still helping families to become the best versions of themselves. And with that, sometimes foster parents reunification is not the goal for that child. And sometimes the foster parents say, hey, you know what, like, this child is my family. And so they end up adopting. So we do help with adoption services as well for part of that program, which is always so nice to
That's
see.
awesome.
Yeah.
I love
Then we
that.
have yeah. So then we have our residential program for children, and that is located on our Desi Scott campus. So with the residential program, all of the children that we take in, they're all boys, ages 12 to 21.
Okay.
And each of them has either a diagnosis where they're on the autism spectrum, or they have a developmental or intellectual disability. So Buckhorn has really, our commitment is to really meeting the community needs and really looking at who are those that have the most needs, who are the most vulnerable, who are the most at risk.
Hmm.
So that's a population that not many people, wanted to help or open up their agency to. So we did, and it's a population I absolutely love and adore. It's very near and dear to my heart. I've worked with this population for years and years, so it's nice.
I love that.
Um,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Then Buckhorn decided, hey, you know what? It's not just children and families that need help. We have adults that need help. There's, substance use disorder is becoming more common, and unfortunately in Eastern Kentucky, it is very common.
Hmm.
So we opened residential facilities for adults who are suffering with substance use disorder. So we have a men's cottage and we have a women's cottage where they'll come and they get to, live with us and learn skills. And each day they have therapy and peer support services and life skills. And so we try to look at them, at each of our clients, take that holistic approach.
Hmm.
What is it that's going to help them to be successful in the long term? What do they need for that long-term recovery? And so we try to make sure that we connect them with the resources, give them skills to be successful. Then after that, we have our outpatient treatment, which is really kind of a step down. So with that step down, it's for those people who have stepped down from residential services and they need that follow-up care. So we're able to provide that, just that continuity on an outpatient level as well.
You guys really cover the whole board, don't you?
We do. We do. Yeah, it's really exciting to be able to be on that forefront of, hey, we're here, we're identifying what the community needs are. We work with a ton of community partners and stakeholders. So as they're identifying, hey, this is a new problem in the community, if there's a way that we can meet that need, we're more than happy to try to meet that need,
Hmm.
because that's what we're here for.
I guess, in your view, do you feel like there's anything that particularly makes like Buckhorn's approach unique, I guess, compared to like other ones that maybe like makes you guys stand out since you guys, you work in foster care, addiction recovery, behavioral health, and whatnot. Anything that particularly
Yeah.
think makes it more unique than the others?
I think that we try to break down barriers maybe a little more than others. So even for like, for example, our foster care program, in our family preservation program, like we're going out into the homes.
Mm,
So it's
okay,
one less thing that people have to worry about is how am I going to get transportation? That can be
right.
an issue for so many people, or how am I going to arrange my schedule to be able to arrange, the transportation time and then do the appointment and then back. So we actually go into the homes. That way, it takes that burden off of the families. And the same with our residential programs. So we'll provide transportation. If someone is ready, saying, hey, look, I want treatment. I know that I need help. We'll go out and pick them up.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's odd, and I feel like the home approach, especially because it's someone's comfortable space, so it feels
Yes.
maybe less invasive. Also, they don't feel like just there's all these you're in a like it's I don't know. It's that feeling when you go into like for lack of a better words like a hospital or something, and you're just kind of like what's going on?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. We definitely want people to feel comfortable.
Right.
I think that's a big part of it.
Love that. And since stepping into the CEO role,
Mhm.
has there been any, milestones or wins or things that you guys are working towards that you're especially proud of?
I think one of the biggest things that I have worked toward a lot is just getting the word out.
Hmm.
Buckhorn has been around since 1902, and I
Wow.
think yeah, it's amazing.
That's insane. That's
Um,
that's such a long time.
Yes, and so I think it comes to where there's so much effort put forth, and everyone is, hey, we know that Buckhorn's here, and then over time other agencies, start to open, and not that those agencies aren't doing great work either, but
Sure.
then it's easy to kind of fall to the wayside, like, well, there's all these other things going on now. So just kind of letting people know, hey, we're here, we'll
Right.
stay here, we have a ton of viable programs. A lot of people actually didn't even know that we were providing the substance use treatment for the adults. They
Interesting.
just kind of linked it. We were only children and family for so long. So
Right.
I've really spent a lot of time with that. I've been working with our clinicians. I think one of our greatest milestones is we've had days where our cottages were full, which
Wow.
is amazing. And of course, with that, my thing is every day that someone is in our care is a day that they're safer. They're
Right.
not out on the street, or they're not back to the same people, places, and things, and have that same mind frame, right? So the longer
Hmm.
they can stay with us, the better off we are. So our bed days have increased. They've almost doubled since I've been here.
Wow.
So yeah,
That's
yeah. So
very
there's a lot
impressive.
of really great things going on, just since I've stepped into this role.
And I mean, you guys have been since 1902. I mean, I feel like that just shows legacy in like a community. To be able
Yeah,
to, I mean, it's 20, we're going into 2026. Like that's
I
that's
know.
that's
I
what
know.
140, no, 100 and I can't do math right now.
123 years.
23
Yeah.
years. That's insane.
Isn't it? Isn't it? Yeah. So exciting. So exciting.
What do you feel like does it that allows like an organization to really, I guess, be around and support for that long? Because I feel like a lot of people, like they when organizations are around for that long, most people have the mindset they forget that something and some people have to run the organization, right? So it becomes because it's such a like I forget people all the time run Apple. Like I'm just like, oh, it's just a phone. I'll get a phone next year, you know? But it's like in reality, like to stay, like it's so impressive to be um working for that long, like have like an organization that's been prosperous for that long and helping people for that long. What do you think, like, I guess, does that? Do you think it's solely on the community aspect? Do you think it's on great leadership and team, a mixture of both?
I think it's the ability to pivot.
Mm,
Just,
I
you know,
love
as
that.
the
Yep, that's a
landscape
great answer.
changes, you've got to be able to pivot and do what's needed, across the landscape. We started out as a school and almost basically like an orphanage.
Hmm.
And then, as time went on, we got rid of orphanages, and then we became, residential facilities, and then,
Right.
foster care started. And so we've been able to kind of pivot with the times, which was, the latest was adding the adult services.
Hmm.
And with those adult services, that was something that, I don't think anyone ever saw Buckhorn doing,
Fair.
but it was a need. It was a need within the community. So it's really listening to the community, listening to our stakeholders, and then being aware of what the regulations are, what's changing, staying on top of that so that you can pivot,
Hmm.
and do what you can for long-term sustainability.
I love that. The pivoting aspect is so important, especially as I mean things what was great or not great, what was like happening 100 years ago clearly is going to be different than what's happening now.
Absolutely.
So I guess going into like, programs and quality and whatnot, when
Mhm.
expanding a program or launching a new service,
Mhm.
what's your process, I guess, for making sure it's built in a way that truly meets the community needs? Or are there any like checkpoints you try to look at?
The need is
Hmm.
is where I start. I'm going to do a whole project management research behind the scenes before I expand or do
Sure.
anything. So because one person says there's a need, I'm going to need to dig into that a little more.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So along with the need, then I'm also going to look at financial. Like
Right.
what does this look like financially? What is the revenue that we can generate? What are the staff that are required? Is this a viable service for us?
Hmm.
So then I'm going to take that into account. And from there, then I'm going to look at location. We have multiple sites across Eastern Kentucky. So
Okay.
what are the locations, that we could look at? What makes the most sense? And then kind of launch it from there. Just making sure that we have some pretty good KPIs in place,
Right.
to make sure that we're meeting those KPIs to keep it sustainable and going. If not, we need to pivot and change, something that we're doing,
Right.
um, to make it successful.
And that's one thing when you talk about KPIs, it's definitely that, most people, and justifiably so, they're not, in that type of world. Like it's easy on concept to say we need to do this, right? But then there's always there's finances that are involved. How do we
Yep.
get this paid? Everything comes down to how do we get this paid for and afforded. And that's when it's like trying to balance the aspect of making this happen, this concept happen, but also finding a way to make it feasible, not just for the short term, for like a few months or a year, but for the long term as well. And that's a huge task in itself.
Yes, it is. I rely on my chief financial officer regularly.
Constant check-ins.
We have a lot of meetings.
So, behavioral health, I mean, I'm not very familiar with the industry, but I feel like it can be, just from what I know in my head, like, sort of like unpredictable. Um, are there like funding changes, regulation shifts? I mean, community needs absolutely that probably need, evolution. I guess how do you stay adaptive while maintaining the stability side of stuff?
I think you're right that especially when it does come down to funding and finances, things change.
Hmm.
It can change based on the administration that we have in office.
Sure,
I mean, that certainly, what is important to this administration may not be important to the next administration.
sure.
So being aware and diversifying our funding. So not just relying on maybe private insurance, but then opening it up to public insurance or self pay. We also, because we are a nonprofit faith based organization, then we also rely on our donors and we rely on grants, and so we kind of tackle it from all aspects just to make sure, like, hey, if this falls, we have kind of a backup to make sure that we can continue.
Love that. And going into, uh, I guess, teams in a sense, because I'm a big believer that workforce obviously drives every single organization, for
Yeah.
profit, nonprofit. Behavioral health is one of the toughest industries, I feel like, for like staffing and retention. Um,
Yes.
what does your team structure look like today, and where do you feel the biggest workforce, I guess, pressures lie?
I think one of I guess the downfalls is just the area that we live in. It's beautiful in Eastern Kentucky, but the number of people who live in Eastern
Sure.
Kentucky, it's very low. And so attracting new staff is difficult because there are competitors, and just the census is low.
Right.
So that in itself is very challenging to try to get people on board. Um, so with our leaders, we spend a lot of time just listening.
Hmm.
What is it that needs to happen? What is it, and then just trying to, I think the goal of any CEO is I think there's usually a culture shift that needs to happen
Sure.
as new CEOs come in. And so that is something that I'm working on now, just because, like I said, with administration, with leadership, things that maybe were previously important to a different leader before me, maybe that's not important, but there are things that are really important to me.
Right.
And so, so getting people that buy-in and understanding. So pretty quickly when I started, I said, okay, we're going to do like an all staff meeting. And so
Right.
everybody can meet me and get the same message and hear the same message at the same time. And so they know where I'm headed and what it's going to look like. And just to kind of get everybody on the same page. I've also let them know, and I work with my leaders on this all the time, is, we can't forget that forming, storming, norming process, right? So
Hmm.
when you come in, everything's forming and it all seems peachy, right?
Yep.
Well, then there's going to be that storming phase where we're saying, okay, but this is the direction we're moving. We're no longer over here. We want to move this direction, and we've got to get on board. And that uncertainty and that change that people don't like.
Yep.
So that can become a little difficult, but then just having them keep in mind that in the long term, we're going to be norming, right? So
Right.
so what is the new norm? You're going to look back and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I used to do that 6 months ago, or
Right.
so yeah. So with our leaders, it's real important that we kind of stay in line with what we're doing,
Right.
and that we're all on the same page, and that we stay positive as we roll out new initiatives and things like that. But keeping in mind that forming, storming, norming it's true. It's going to happen.
Right. And I'll be honest, it's the first time. I mean, I definitely have heard forming, storming, norming before, but not as often as like as just now. Like not often enough to be able to like get off my head just now. But that's
Yeah.
such a true statement. Like it's like, yeah, you'll have those like you have what's formal and then you'll have like the storming side where things are gonna shift and then you're gonna have your new
Yeah.
normal. And that's as true in business as it is in just your daily life as well when life changes too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great thing to keep in mind.
I love that. And the behavioral health hiring space is still one that, I'm not fully an expert on,
Sure.
but from, I guess, the past versus like, your role as CEO now, um, has Buckhorn like hired frequently? Is it something where you see a lot of roles that see a lot of churn more than others?
Yeah, I think based on the role, you do see a little more turnover. Our direct care staff, those that
Mm,
are, working directly, there tends to be a lot more turnover there.
you're right.
Um, and less frequently with clinical roles and then of course your advanced leadership roles.
Sure.
So it's something that we have identified as for me, that was one of the things I identified as a concern. So to kind of help us, we have formed a leadership academy
Oh,
where we're
awesome.
going to take all of our leaders and we're going to start doing specific trainings with them that I think they need for leadership and leadership skills. And then from there, we'll be creating new training for all of our staff. That way, it's kind of that trickle down effect, right? So I'm going to start at the top. We're going to invest, and then the expectations that it will trickle down,
Right.
so that everyone feels more confident, more comfortable in everything that they're doing. So that's real important. So this is something that we just started this week, and I'm really excited about it.
I love that. Yeah, no, that's and because you're training them to better support the staff that's below them in a sense. I love that.
Absolutely.
And it's definitely always starts from the top. It's never a bottom of the
No.
barrel kind of thing. It's always we
No.
start from the top and trickle down. I love that mindset. Um, you've led teams through growth, transitions, and quite frankly, emotionally like demanding environments.
Yeah.
How do you, I guess, do you keep staff aligned and motivated or inspired through all of that?
I think it's just helping them keep an eye on that end. What is it that we're here for again? What is it
Right,
that we're here for again? And those success stories become so important. Just, hey, tell me about a client that you saw this week or, this past month, and that they had a success. Share that with me. So I think those success stories, that's what drives anyone who comes to this field anyway, is we want to feel that success. And unfortunately, it doesn't, one, happen as often as what we would like it to. And then two, sometimes we never know, right? So sometimes someone leaves for, various reasons, and then we never know the impact that we actually made on them.
right,
And so, kind of reminding staff that we're planting seeds the entire way, right? So you don't know when that seed's going to grow. And just look at what you've done, look at where you are now, look at where your clients are now. So, really just helping them focus on the positives and the changes because that's what we're all here for.
love that. And when you're bringing someone new into the Buckhorn family,
Mhm.
I guess what qualities or values do you feel like indicate they'll be a strong fit for your culture, whether it's on, an entry level role or like a
Sure.
leadership role?
Yeah. I guess just that core of I'm here because I want to help.
Hmm,
I think that's what we look for in anyone, right? I think that we can teach most of the skills you can teach along the way,
sure.
as long as someone's open and willing to learn. But it's really that I'm here because I want to help. I want to make a difference. I want to make an impact in people's lives. So, as long as people have that. Then I feel like culturally they'll probably be a pretty good fit,
Right.
and we can teach them what they need from there.
That's awesome. So, going on to business growth and strategy, because there's what a lot of
Yep.
people love to hear about as well, is kind of like how to actually run a lot of this stuff. So, you
Yep.
manage multi-million dollar behavioral health programs across multiple states, which is
Yeah.
insane to say multiple states in that sense. What's the first thing, I guess, you evaluate when stepping into a new leadership challenge?
One of the things I want to look at is, I guess there are lots of things that I look to
Yeah, I feel
evaluate
like it's hard to put
program
down to
success.
one.
Yeah. Um, I think the biggest thing is looking at strengths and weaknesses of the program.
Hmm.
That's
Okay.
really what it comes down to. What are the strengths and weaknesses of the program? What are we excelling at? What is it that we're not excelling at? And then let's put a plan in place to form a way that we can excel at that.
Right.
And then, of course, with that, making sure that you're complying with regs, especially across multiple states. Regs vary from state to state, so making
Right.
sure that we're staying in compliance with the regs and that the agency is staying in compliance with the regs and those kinds of things. But really, when I'm looking at something immediately, I'm looking at strengths, I'm looking at areas of opportunity,
Hmm.
and a lot of that does tie down to finances. Like, let's just be honest. Where are we
Right.
with finances and
Exactly.
sustainability, and what can we do to improve?
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And the going into the strengths and weaknesses is it's such a straightforward but like logical execution point because I feel like a lot of people whether they run, a large organization, small organization, big organization, but the more people who are like getting into this and maybe run the smaller ones, it's always like you're looking for like a magic strategy or pill for
Right.
it. And in reality, it's just like, well, no, like you have to, there's going to be stuff that's not as great versus stuff that's great. You have to figure out how you can navigate those two and how you can take away the time from the stuff that's not doing as great and put it into the things that
Yeah.
are doing great for you.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I think in this role, that was one of the first things that I did. I think I spent 2 weeks, my first 2 weeks was literally analyzing every program. What are the
right,
strengths? What are our areas of need? What do we need to do? And came up with a whole operational plan of this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to roll it out. And this is how we're going to
right.
build an even stronger foundation and then grow.
Love that. And for long-term growth for Buckhorn, whether operational, geographic, or like service related, is there anything specifically you guys are primarily focusing on, or like a span of certain things specifically?
Yeah, no, great question. Yes. I think for me, that continuity of care, that continuum of care is crucial.
Hmm.
So when it comes to especially like our adults with the residential, then we'll offer the step down. We'll offer, continue to offer those outpatient services and grow those to integrate IOP in there.
Right,
And we're also looking at adding transitional living because I think it's really important for the people that, maybe their insurance would only give them 60 days. 60 days is great, but they're not ready for long-term sustainability of their recovery. So maybe they can stay with us for another, 6 months
right.
where they can, work as well and getting them tied with jobs and that kind of stuff. So that's one of the biggest, I guess, as we look at growth, that is a program that I have already thrown out there then and said, this is what I like to do. And then with the autism, there's such a need in this area. There are very, very limited providers.
Hmm.
And this is my whole background was actually working with children with autism for a long, long time.
Gotcha.
So I plan to open some pretty robust outpatient autism services to be able to really meet that community need instead of people having to travel to Lexington or to Louisville or something like that. Like I want to be able to open the outpatient services so that they can get those needs met right here.
I love that, and that's such a strong mission to be a part of. With like behavioral health, it's rapidly changed in the last decade. I feel like.
Yeah.
How do you approach, I guess, innovation in a space where human-centered care is something that always comes first? Because I feel like when you start mixing in technology is great, but there's obviously a gray line as far as where it's beneficial versus where it gets in the way.
It is. And I think that's actually, when we talked earlier about recruiting challenges,
Hmm.
so many clinicians can do virtual work now or remote work
Sure.
that they don't want to come into office and they don't want to. And I understand.
Right.
I do. But we do require in the office, and we do require the face-to-face visits. We do require that human contact, that human touch.
Right.
I think it's so important. And so I think that's one of the things that does lead to recruiting challenges, but I think that also continues to set us apart is you're going to get that one-on-one care.
Right.
You're going to get that face-to-face, that person. Because even as a clinician, am I capable of doing virtual sessions? Absolutely. Absolutely. And are there benefits of it? 100%. However, if someone, like you and I are speaking right now, if you're shaking your leg because you're nervous or agitated, I can't see it.
Yeah, that's true.
But if I was in session with you, I could.
Right.
And so I think that's one of the things that one both poses a challenge, and then two, when we look at the dedication that people have, and going back to that, like it's that person to person contact, it's that relationship building, it's that there are a lot of studies done just in therapy that say like the single most driving factor is that rapport building and that relationship that the client has with the therapist.
Yeah, I
So just
100% agree.
having us keep that in mind that these are really important things to be successful in this field.
Yeah, and I 100% agree. Especially we live in an era, obviously, where technology is I mean, it's every day. Like
Yeah.
there's no getting away from it. But we
No.
use it for personal lives, business, and it's such a benefit to our lives. But it's also it's like when you try to find more of that human nature, that human touch, it's like you appreciate it a lot more. Especially
Right.
when, if you notice, like, especially on social media. Like, I have a very big marketing background, and one of
Mhm.
the biggest shifts I'm seeing on marketing and social media is that people want more authenticity. They want more realism that comes through the screen to them, even though it's online, because everything is filled with, you don't know if this is real or fake. And now with all the AI
Right.
videos too, I've even been fooled by some of them, and I'm like, this is insane.
Yes, yes, I agree.
So I 100% agree. I think the human touch is such a big thing, and I can see how it helps a lot of people as well with going into it.
Mhm.
Um, Looking ahead, so as we come down to like the last couple questions here, I only have two more.
Yeah,
Um, Moving forward, I mean, I said this earlier, it's 2025, we go to 2026, which is insane to say.
I
It
know.
still feels like the year has just started.
Yeah.
What's next for Buckhorn as you continue to scale services and impact? I know you want to touch more on the autism side, but is there anything else you guys are also going into?
I think just that transitional living component of it is another big push.
Hmm.
I've met with some community partners who have asked me to look into other things like transient living. Is there anything that we can do to support, especially people with, unfortunately, the past few years, Eastern Kentucky has been devastated with flooding.
Okay.
And so people are still not in their homes.
Wow.
Um, yeah, yeah. And so is there anything that we can do for people who have been displaced due to natural disasters, things like that? So it's something that I've just started to vet out, and we'll have a lot more meetings and things like that. But I think Buckhorn is always going to continue to evolve to meet those community needs as needs arrive, and it becomes, hey, this is something that it can't be overlooked. This is something that we really need to focus on. Then I think that anything we can do to help, we want to make sure we're able to.
And that's what's kept Buckhorn in the community for so long is your guys' ability to adapt and pivot too. So I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Final question. So as you reflect on your leadership journey, I
Yeah.
guess what's the message or legacy you hope to leave for future leaders in behavioral health?
Um, I think the biggest thing that I want to leave behind is for me is just knowing that my entire career was really dedicated to helping others. That's what brought me into this field.
Right.
That's kind of the legacy that I want to leave behind. So I think everyone has to find kind of your own mission. What is it that drives you? For me, it was trying to help everyone to become the best versions of themselves possible.
Hmm.
And that has been since I was a kid up through. So my legacy wants to be, it wants to be just that. Like this is the mission that I set forth to do. This is what I want people to recognize me at is she was a strong leader. She helped make things happen to help that more clients, to help, so we think everyone has to find kind of your own, what is it that drives you? What is your mission statement?
Hmm.
And
Love
then
that.
make sure that that's the legacy that you leave behind.
I love that. Well, Joy, thank you so much for, joining me today. I'd love to, for anyone who wants to connect with you, I'd love to like leave your LinkedIn or something if you want. I can do that in the description. And for
Okay.
anyone who wants to connect, I'll leave it down there. Joy and actually we connected over LinkedIn in
We
general.
did.
So
We
she
did.
does respond on LinkedIn. Thank you for sharing, your experience, your perspective. I think your work truly shows, I guess, what like leadership is in behavioral health, how that can look, and when it's rooted in compassion and structure and evidence-based practice too. It's clear that the programs you've built have changed countless lives. So again, thank you so much for jumping on here. For everyone else who is listening, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time on the Founders Table.